I really don't know. George Talbot is in a bank, and I suppose even bankers have their human moments, in clubs or wherever bankers go when they are not banking. The Talbots knew then, I take it? They must have. Mrs. Talbot says she remonstrated with Mrs. Lancaster only this afternoon about having it there. And Mrs. Lancaster was peevish, and said Margaret had been scolding her too. Humphrey. He said. Quite a lot of interest in that money all at once, wasn't there? Well, let's get back to you, and what you saw before Emily Lancaster came out of her faint, and found young Wellington with you. I had begun to have a queer unwilling sort of confidence in the man, but I hesitated then. Don't be afraid, he said. It takes a lot of trouble to send an innocent man to the chair these days, and some things as much to send a guilty one. So I told him all I knew, which was not a great deal. I began at 3:30 that afternoon, and ended when I left the house perhaps an hour and a half later. He listened with his eyes closed, and still pinching that upper lip of his, until I had finished. Then he thanked me and got up. It's the sort of case that sets a police department by the ears, he said. A crime probably by a non-habitual criminal, and so ordinary methods are no use in it. Well, we'll have to hope for some luck. Maybe it's in the chest. Certainly from the weight of it the gold still is. And I imagine that it was after that talk with me that Mr. Sullivan went down for the ice pick and met Mr. Lancaster in the hall, only to be forbidden to open the chest at all. My friend of the pavement was waiting for me when I left the house. It was after midnight by that time, and raining hard, and I still remember the street lamp shining on his glistening rubber coat, and his injunction to me that I had better make a run for it. It was not until I had got back to my own room that I missed Margaret's parcel. My heart almost stopped beating, for whatever it was I knew that it probably lay, white and gleaming, somewhere on the pavement between the two houses. I turned out my light and surveyed what little of the street I could see from my window. My friend of the rubber coat was not in sight, but toward the rear in no man's land men seemed to be still moving. Their flashlights at that distance looked like fireflies moving close to the earth. I did not know just what they were searching for, unless it was footprints. But they gave me what the inspector had not, a terror of the relentless process of the law that turned me cold. For I knew I would have to go out again, retrace my steps and find that envelope which was to save someone who was innocent. And who could that be but Jim? The rubber coat was not in sight when I reached the pavement again, and I found my parcel easily enough. No sooner had I picked it up, however, than the now familiar voice spoke close behind me. I thought I'd put you safely to bed. I lost my handkerchief while I was running, I said, and dropped the wet object down the neck of my frock. He saw the gesture and seemed undecided. After all, he could hardly have upended me there on the street and shaken it out of me. But he did not believe the handkerchief story, and he lost some of his amiability. I'd like to see what you picked up just now, miss. My handkerchief. I've told you. If you don't believe me, take me over to Inspector Briggs and watch him laugh at you. And you won't show it? Why should I? Unless I'm under arrest? That decided him, for with a sharp warning to go back home and stay there, he let me go. When I reached our porch, he was still standing there in the pouring rain, looking uneasily after me. And so frightened was I that I was locked in my room with the shades drawn before I so much as looked at what Margaret had given me. Then I examined it. It was a fair-sized white envelope on which the rain had already done its work, for as I examined it, it fairly went to pieces in my hands. There was no concealing its contents. What it contained was a man's glove, a glove belonging to a large man, and of heavy leather. Nor was there any concealing the fact that the glove was stained with blood. It was wet and faded on the back, but the palm and fingers were stiff with it. I stood there, literally frozen with horror. It was a glove that would have fitted Jim Wellington, but could on no account belong to Mr. Lancaster, with his small delicate hands. Like a woman's, his hands. And instantly I was seeing Margaret running down the stairs after poor Emily, and coming across that glove, maybe in the lower hall. Finding it and hiding it. She liked Jim. She had said, "All I'm trying to do is to save somebody who is innocent." But how, if that glove was Jim's, could she believe him innocent?